You've probably been told you're just anxious, that you worry too much, that you need to relax, that you're making things harder than they need to be. Here's what almost nobody explains correctly. Overthinking and anxiety are not the same thing. Anxiety is a fear response. Overthinking is a thinking style, a specific way your brain processes information, weighs decisions, and searches for patterns. And once psychologists started studying overthinkers specifically, separate from anxiety disorders, they found something that changes everything about how you should see yourself. By the end of this video, you'll know the 8 real signs that you're an overthinker, not an anxious person, an overthinker, and why several of these signs are actually markers of above-average reasoning, not a flaw to fix. Stick around because sign number 5 explains something about your sleep that you've probably never had a real answer for. Sign 1. You replay conversations for days after they happen. You said something 3 days ago and it's still running through your head. Not because you're obsessed with it, because your brain is doing something specific, cross-referencing that moment against every similar situation you've experienced before, checking for a pattern, checking if you missed something important. This isn't a malfunction, it's called retrospective processing, and it's actually a sign of a brain that refuses to let information unexamined. Most people hear something, react, and move on. You hear something, and your mind keeps working on it in the background, long after the conversation ended, the same way a computer keeps running a calculation after you've closed the window. Think about the last time you sent a text and immediately started analyzing your own wording. Most people hit send and forget about it within seconds. You're still there an hour later, wondering if a single word landed differently than you meant it. That's not insecurity, that's your brain refusing to let an unresolved thread just sit there unexamined. Sign 2. You over-prepare for situations that probably won't happen. You already expected this one. Before a big meeting, a trip, or even a simple phone call, you've mentally run through every possible way it could go wrong and prepared a response for each one. People call this excessive, but here's the reframe. You're not being paranoid, you're running simulations. Pilots do this, surgeons do this. The people whose job depends on not being caught off guard train themselves to think exactly the way you already do, naturally, for free, without anyone teaching you. Most people find out mid-conversation that something's gone wrong and scramble in the moment. You already have 3 responses ready before you've even walked into the room. That's not anxiety talking, that's preparation most people never bothered to do. Sign 3. Small decisions take you longer than they take other people, and that extra time usually leads to a better outcome. Choosing between 2 restaurants, deciding which email draft to send, picking which route to take. Other people decide in seconds, you weigh it. And here's what the research on cognitive processing actually shows. When overthinkers finally do decide, they report fewer regrets than fast deciders, specifically because they've already mentally tested the alternative outcomes before committing. What looks like hesitation from the outside is actually risk modeling happening in real time. Someone who decides fast might pick the wrong restaurant and just shrug it off. You picked the right one because by the time you chose, you'd already ruled out the 2 that would have gone badly. Slow isn't the same as wrong. Slow is often just thorough. But there's a sign that has nothing to do with decisions at all, and it's the one costing you the most sleep, literally. Sign 4. You notice inconsistencies in what people say, even small ones, even ones they didn't mean anything by. Someone changes their story slightly. Someone's tone doesn't match their words. You catch it instantly, even when nobody else in the room does. This pattern detection isn't overreacting. It's your brain running a constant background check for logical consistency, which in professional settings is exactly the skill that makes overthinkers excellent editors, analysts, and problem solvers. You're not imagining the inconsistency. You're one of the only people actually tracking it. Sign 5, the one costing you sleep. Your brain doesn't have an off switch at night. This is the sign nobody explains properly. The moment your body is finally still and quiet, with no external input competing for your attention, your brain treats that silence as an invitation to process everything it didn't have time to process during the day. This is why overthinkers so often report lying awake, replaying the day's events, rehearsing tomorrow's conversations, or solving problems that don't even need solving yet. It's not that your brain won't rest, it's that rest is the first moment all day it's actually had the space to think. Sign 6. You feel like people are silently judging you, even when there's no real evidence they are. You already suspected this one belonged on the list. Here's the honest reframe. This isn't about being insecure. Overthinkers are unusually good at reading subtle social signals, a slightly delayed response, a tone shift, a pause. The problem isn't that you're imagining things. The problem is you're often accurately detecting small signals, then over-attributing meaning to them that isn't actually there. The detection is real, the interpretation is where it goes sideways. Someone takes an extra beat to respond to your message, and within seconds, you've built an entire theory about what you did wrong. 9 times out of 10, they were just busy. But the 1 time out of 10 you were right to notice something off is exactly why your radar never fully switches off. Sign 7. You apologize for things that weren't your fault. Someone bumps into you and you say sorry. A meeting runs long because of someone else and you still feel the need to apologize for the time. This isn't weakness, it's your brain's constant risk assessment running even in low-stakes social moments, defaulting to smoothing things over before a problem can even form. The cost is that you take on blame that was never actually yours to carry. It's a strange reflex, apologizing for the weather, for someone else being late, for a delay you had nothing to do with. Not because you actually believe it's your fault, but because some part of you has already calculated that a quick apology closes the loop faster than letting a moment of tension sit unresolved. Sign 8. You catch mistakes before they become real problems, for yourself and for everyone around you. Because your mind is already running ahead, checking angles, testing outcomes, you're often the person who says, "Wait, what about this?" right before something goes wrong. Teams with an overthinker on them make fewer costly mistakes, not because the overthinker works harder, but because they were already 3 steps down the road mentally before anyone else started walking. You've probably lost count of the times you caught a typo in an important email seconds before sending, or noticed a scheduling conflict nobody else flagged. That's not luck, that's the same mind that keeps you up at night, working exactly the way it's supposed to during the day. So, if any of this described you, tell me which sign hit hardest. I read every single one.